How's it going guys, Kris here, and it's time for another Battlefield 5 weapon guide. Today we're going to be focusing on one of the most popular American weapons to see action in World War II, the M1A1 Carbine. It can be used by the assault class, but only after you've unlocked it, by reaching assault rank 5 first. So in the year of 1938, just before the start of the Second World War, the US Army started looking for something a little bit different to the other weapons they already had. A lightweight shoulder arm with a reasonable amount of power that could be given to second line troops like mortar teams of vehicle crews who would have had to rely on the sidearm to defend themselves from an enemy attack, should the enemy decide to pop up and become a very big problem. The M1 Garand was a bit too beefy and cumbersome for typical supporting troops to carry, and during pre- and early war field exercises, it became apparent that a carbine type weapon, or something like a modern day PDW, would have been a much more suitable choice, providing enough firepower that was easy enough to get to grips with, yet didn't get in the way of the user's main job, which was usually doing stuff other than killing. Along came the M1 Carbine, a semi-automatic shoulder arm that used detachable box magazines housing 15 .30 caliber cartridges, just what those support troops needed. Of course, it didn't exactly fire the strongest round in the world, with the M1 Garand's shots being almost 3 times more powerful. With that said, they were still much deadlier than the 45 ACP bullets fired by the Tommy gun and the M1911 pistol, giving the M1 Carbine a lot more range, accuracy and bullet penetration over those. In Battlefield 5, we get to be behind the trigger of an M1A1, which is basically the paratrooper model of the M1 Carbine that came into the scene a little bit later. Pretty much the same gun, but this one had a metal wire stock that could be folded away, making it even more compact and portable. It was also a little bit lighter too, which definitely would have been handy for a paratrooper, with them already dropping in with basic supplies and ammo weighing them down and making their jobs even harder. For this reason, the M1A1 was issued to most US paratrooper units, meaning the gun saw action in every American airborne operation in World War II, making them very popular weapons indeed. And because the M1 Carbine was such a success, it even ended up coming into the civilian market years later, with commercial models still being produced, even today. So anyway, let's check out those stats and see just how the M1A1 Carbine compares to some of the other similar weapons in the assault class. Damage wise, it's actually the weakest gun out of the base game semi-automatics, with a maximum damage of just 30 within those closer ranges, which starts to drop off and become weaker beyond 35 meters. The damage drop is quite gradual leading up to 49 meters, as it's only going to be reduced down to about 28, which then sharply drops down to 25 just 1 meter further. And then that damage is going to start sloping off even more so beyond here, eventually leading to the gun's minimum damage output of 22 at the range of 75 meters. So in layman's terms, if you bump into a healthy enemy within a close to medium range, up to 50 meters, then you'll be able to wipe them out in 4 shots to the body. Any further than this, and it's going to take an extra bullet to finish them off. The M1A1 deals the same sort of longer range damage as the Gewehr 1.5, but has far less stopping power up close, meaning it'll take an extra bullet to kill up to 30 meters. And generally speaking, the gun's not a very powerful thing to use, dishing out some of the lowest damage values across the board. Those 30 caliber shots don't exactly pack very much punch, but they can be fired out at a quicker rate than most of the other semi-automatic rifles' bullets, helping to make up for the gun's lack of raw stopping power quite nicely. The M1A1 shoots at a nippy rate of 450 RPM, faster than a lot of the others, and so it matches up with the AG M42, giving it some very similar kill times within those closer ranges, up to about 50 meters. But because the M42 deals a fair bit more power over distance, this puts the M1A1 at a disadvantage in comparison, allowing it to perform reasonably well over those early mid-ranges, but slightly less so against opponents further away. The M1A1 Carbine might fire some of the puniest bullets of all the semi-auto assault weapons, but that isn't necessarily a terrible thing. Because there's less power behind them, this means that the energy generated by shooting is generally going to be lower too, giving the M1A1 a bit more stability than the rest of the pack. Just like the other semi-automatic rifles, the M1A1 Carbine doesn't have any horizontal recoil, with the only thing really affecting the way it kicks around being its vertical recoil figure, which is actually lower than all the others at a value of 0.6, so not very much at all. To make things even better, the M1A1 also has a very small amount of vertical recoil increase per shot, basically meaning that slightly less recoil will accumulate over time than with the other semi-automatics. which is going to come in very handy for when you're frantically tapping the trigger, firing at the gun's maximum rate, and basically spamming shots towards your victim to wipe them out as fast as you possibly can. The recoil buffer specialization can be applied, which is going to reduce this already low vertical recoil increase even further, potentially making the weapon even more spammable, by lowering the extra recoil gained when firing multiple shots in quick succession, which might help to improve your accuracy over further distances, especially whenever you need to fire lots of bullets one after the other. But one of the big downsides to firing off a weaker cartridge is the fact that you'll need to lead an enemy's movements more, making the M1A1 a bit trickier to use over those longer distances. It's got the slowest bullet speed in the class, with a muzzle velocity of just 610 meters per second. Definitely not a great value to have. And so this further limits its effectiveness for longer range fights. Though by equipping the higher velocity bullet spec, this muzzle velocity can be boosted up to 690 meters per second, putting it slightly behind the Turner SMLE and making it a tad more ideal for those medium ranges. Now, the standard M1A1 Carbine was typically given to paratroopers with a 15-round magazine, and that's exactly what you're going to get in Battlefield 5, with an extra bullet in the chamber to give you a total of 16 shots overall. This is more than what a lot of the other semi-autos can carry, as the only others to hold more out of all the launch weapons are the Selbstlader 1916 and of course the Gewehr 1.5 with its 31 shot capacity. If the sound of having 31 bullets to blast out with your M1A1 sounds pretty tasty, then you're in luck, because with the extended magazine specialization you'll be able to practically double your ammo capacity, allowing you to use one of those banana-shaped mags with a much nicer amount of 30 rounds inside. Because the M1A1 often requires more shots to kill, this larger magazine will definitely seem tempting, as it'll allow you to take down more enemies per reload and put you in less vulnerable positions when you're taking a lot of flak in CQC. Another benefit to equipping extended mags is the fact that you'll actually be able to carry more ammo as a result, as instead of spawning in with 48 bullets spread out over 3 reloads, you'll instead spawn in with 62 bullets over 2 reloads. You'll also be able to carry a new maximum of 93 rounds overall, as opposed to just 64. So not only are you having to reload less, but you'll also be able to keep on going for longer too, before having to visit a supply station or a fellow support player, which is a very nice bonus to have, especially in the M1A1's case, with bullets being a lot more expendable due to the gun's spammy nature. If you're not quite tempted by that larger magazine, then you don't have to worry a great deal, because the M1A1's reload times aren't really all that bad, with a simple box mag reload taking just 2 seconds if there's rounds left over, and an extra second more if it's empty. These are faster times than the other semi-autos that use box magazines, including the Turner SMLEs and the Gewehr 43s, with their detachable mag spec applied. Plus you won't need to fumble around with individual rounds either, like you would with a lot of the others too. Anyway, running over the specializations next, the first 2 choices at the top of the tree are the recoil buffer and quick aim specs. Applying the recoil buffer basically means you'll generate less upwards recoil per shot, allowing it to perform more accurately when you're firing lots of bullets quickly, whereas quick aim is going to improve reliability by allowing you to aim down sights slightly faster than normal. Out of these two, I prefer to use quick aim to get on target a little bit quicker, as by cutting down ADS time, this is going to help to decrease kill time slightly when aiming and firing, which goes quite well with the M1A1 being a fairly aggressive weapon. Reducing the vertical recoil does complement the gun's ability to spam fire, making it more precise over longer ranges, though I actually quite like having that bit of extra vertical recoil with the M1A1 Carbine, as it can often cause the gun's line of fire to drift upwards towards your opponent's head when you're aiming at the chest, nicely resulting in more headshots. As for the midsection, on the left side, there's slings and swivels, allowing you to shoot sooner after sprinting and switch between weapons faster, followed by the extended mag spec. The right side on the other hand has the custom and lightened stock options, allowing you to strafe around faster in ADS and have 33% less spread whilst doing so too. Because the M1A1 Carbine excels a bit closer to all the action, over those earlier mid-ranges, I prefer to have extra ammo, both in my reserves and in my magazine, as that's going to allow me to take down more players before needing to reload. Because the M1A1 is a gun designed to be spam fired, with it shooting faster and dealing weaker amounts of damage, having more ammo is going to support its strengths better, and the fact that you'll be able to shoot sooner after sprinting also goes nicely with the weapon's somewhat aggressive style. The choices on the other side help to boost mobility and spread while moving, which will come in handy if you strafe around a lot to get on target, but I feel like the options on the left side are going to be a bit more useful most of the time, especially with the gun already being very accurate as it is, so spread isn't really going to make a massive difference in the M1A1's case. Finally, we've got the enhanced grips to improve hipfire and high velocity rounds to boost muzzle velocity. With the M1A1 having the slowest bullet speed of all the semi-autos, I like to bump this up a bit to make it more usable over medium distances. Better hipfire does help out in CQC, though the gun's still not exactly going to be able to compete with the fully automatic weapons in close quarters, where better hipfire becomes more relevant. So, although it performs okay up close, it's still better to be used as an early mid-range weapon, where that higher muzzle velocity will probably help you out more often. So anyway, in conclusion, the M1A1 Carbine is the perfect weapon to pick up if you consider yourself to be a bit trigger happy, as that nippy fire rate allows the gun to be pretty vicious over those early mid-ranges, despite dishing out lower amounts of damage per bullet. The M1A1 might not exactly rival the automatic weapons in the game as far as lethality goes, and its poor range can often hinder its effectiveness against targets far away in the distance, making it less competitive than a lot of the other semi-automatics, along with the Recon's SLRs and the bolt-action rifles. The fact that it has a lower than average bullet speed doesn't make life any easier here either, making it even less reliable beyond those closer ranges. This muzzle velocity can be increased through specializations, but it's still not exactly going to boost its usability over the other similar weapons for longer ranged engagements. With all that said, the M1A1 Carbine's got some of the most pleasant recoil stats in the assault class, with much lower kick readings than the rest of the bunch. This allows you to control the gun's recoil really easily, take advantage of that rapid fire rate, and essentially spam fire your way to victory, allowing you to land more shots accurately while you do. This can be used to your advantage to cut down kill times even further by planting a few headshots in quick succession, and depending on how far away your opponent is, aiming at the chest will often be an effective enough way to use the M1A1, as the gun's low, predictable recoil will naturally cause the muzzle to slightly drift upwards, redirecting those bullets towards your opponent's head, giving you some very lovely results. Something that nicely complements the gun's aggressive tap-fire characteristics is the way it handles with ammunition, as it reloads pretty quickly and holds a reasonable amount of shots, having a higher capacity than a lot of the other semi-autos with its standard magazine, and a hell of a lot more with that extended one. These features make the gun even more ideal for spamming shots out and play into the M1A1's strengths, meaning it can perform even better within its optimal range, whilst being used in combination with offensive tactics. And overall, it might not exactly be the best thing in the world to equip for dropping targets far away, but it's more than capable of getting the job done effectively nearer by, being much more consistent and reliable here, so long as your trigger finger can keep up with it. So that's it for another one, folks. Hope you enjoyed the guide and maybe learned a few things. If you did, you know what to do. And if you've not subscribed yet, well, now's a pretty good time to do so. Loads more Battlefield content coming up very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in that next episode.